Hey, there we're on. It took me a second there. I wasn't sure what's going on. Hi, we're celebrating Randy Meisner's life. Such a sad occurrence, you know. I was after we did I featured, and it's on the channel by the way. We featured a whole thing with Randy where we were talking about people that were in his universe, and just featured a whole interview with Randy that I did in 2000 a little while ago. I'm just making sure that I'm streaming on all the things that I promised I'd stream on, so just bear with me. There we go. The things you have to do when you come on live, just all kinds of fun little things. Anyway, I want to thank everyone who's on live with us. We have a lot of different guests on this clip. What we're going to do is we're going to feature, who do we got? We're going to feature Bernie Leadon, who I interviewed a couple of years ago. He talks about Randy, talks about Hotel California, um, Henry Diltz, who did their first two album covers. We're going to talk to him. Jack Tempchin, who wrote with Glenn Frey an awful lot, and wrote with Glenn Frey a lot when Glenn was solo. Like I said, Bernie Leadon, Henry Diltz, Henry Paul, who was with the Outlaws, who was produced by Bill Szymczyk at one point at the same time that he was producing the Eagles. Who else? Henry Diltz, yeah, did the album covers. And then we're going to have a clip with Randy Meisner, Jim Messina, and Richie Furay. So we've got a lot of people in this clip this time around talking about Randy. Now, Randy came up in interviews I did an awful lot. It was, hi, Gina, greetings from Los Angeles. Hi, thank you for joining us. Randy's name would come up all the time because anytime I'd interview someone who knew him or knew something about him, I would always ask, "How's Randy doing?" And he died of COPD not last night, the night before. The Eagles released a really nice sort of memoir for him. So did Don Felder. I really like the Eagles one though; they really gave him credit. But everyone did. Everyone who was in his vicinity. I'm a little scattered today because of getting. I had to go on my NAS and get all these clips that I were all over the place. John, thank you for this, Ripster 435. Thank you very much. Let's start. I think if I can put these in the right order.
You mentioned the Gordon Lightfoot thing. Are there
Henry
other
Paul.
times where it was a moment in time where you met someone because man, you were backstage for the right reasons because you were playing, but other moments like the Gordon Lightfoot moment?
Recording Hurry Sundown with Bill Szymczyk, who was like the president of the men's club. He was the greatest man's man you've ever been in a room with. And he was very generous, always buying dinner, always buying blow, always the foot throwing. He had tons of money.
So Bill Szymczyk was a man's man.
Man, the biggest guy and the most generous and most interesting and just warm and inviting guy I've ever met. Just incredible guy. We would be in the studio at one point during the day. The Eagles would be in later that day. He'd be, making an Eagles record and an Outlaws record at the same time. There was a bar next door where we would all go over and you'd sit in a booth with Glenn Frey and
Did you get to know Randy? I interviewed Randy. It's probably the longest interview with Randy on the internet. Did you get to know Randy?
I didn't. He was out of the band pretty early. Randy opened a show for Blackhawk in St. George, Utah. This would be 1995. I mean, it's all in there. It's crazy. I got a chance that night to spend some time with Randy Meisner. His band went up and did a very, very good show. They were just musically impeccable and great voice and just a very admirable musical impression. And being the original bassist in Poco and the Eagles, he was like an enormously large and important person in my life, musically, professionally. And so that, was still at a time where he was very healthy and functional and lucid and together and really had his act in order. And so that was exciting.
Yeah, I liked Randy. He was, in the middle of the interview, there's a deer he was living in the Hollywood Hills at the time, and there was there's a deer that goes by. He says, "Can you hold on? Can you? I'm just watching this deer in my backyard." We stopped the interview. It was the coolest moment.
And those people, and that's a very broad generalization, and I don't mean to sound very generalized, but people with careers that mirror Randy Meisner's, they are eclectic and very unusual people. They're not like they're not like everyday people. They're very different. And I think that you would agree with me that, the guitar player from the Eagles, Bernie Leadon, was a very eclectic and different kind of character. And these are people that kind of grew up in the rock bars in Florida, just like the Outlaws. Bernie was from Gainesville, Tom Petty and Mudcrutch, and we would play in rooms simultaneously with these bands. And the Allman Brothers, all of the early incarnations of that group were always around, and you always knew of them. And it was the music scene down there was really huge and very, very competitive and very played out at a high level. So, you know, people like Bernie, they're very, and I don't know, there's so many levels to those people.
Yeah.
I see the guitar player for the Eagles, what's his name that left?
Don Felder.
Don Felder. Woo! Really handsome, California
He looked like a movie star, Don Felder.
movie star. And he dresses so nice, and he's so suave and so gifted, and I remember in the Eagles, and you saw that famous video where he's wearing the plaid shirt and the blue suspenders, and he's playing the double neck guitar, and his hair is perfect, and his beard, he looks like one of the Bee Gees, for God's sake. Just like, I want to be him.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll be that guy. Can I be him, please?
Yeah.
First of all, we had fun with the group because when we sang well, because, and the reason why the Eagles, one of the main reasons that we had a good blend, other than the fact that Henley was a great singer and Meisner was a great singer, and I'd say Glenn Frey and I were like kind of pretty good singers, but those two guys, I think Meisner and Henley were superior voices, but everybody was in their own range. So Meisner was a true first tenor, I was a true baritone. Henley could sing pretty high. We could all sing pretty high at that point, but when we sang in the stack, we were all in our own range, so everybody's comfortable and nobody sounds strained. Everybody's in full voice, and that's part of why it sounds so good.
Muted? Oh God, I'm muted. Sorry, all that time I've been muted. Sorry about that. Sound, mic off. Yes, sorry. Ah, I hate when I do that. Anyway, I'll start over. Sorry about this. But Bernie had said, I said, Bernie, do you care if your name is said wrong? Because people would say Bernie Leadon because it looked like Leadon, and Glenn Frey because it looked like Frey. And no, it's Fry and it's Leadon. He says, as long as the checks come in, I don't care. Way to go. That's what I was saying. And the vocal stack, the fact that Bernie Leadon is talking about the vocal stack and giving Don Henley and Randy Meisner credit for being the two top singers in the Eagles. Did you hear that part? That's what he says. He says, Glenn Frey was a pretty good singer, and I was a pretty good singer. But he says the two lead guys in that band, as far as vocal prowess, Randy Meisner and Don Henley. I mean, really, when you listen to the chorus of any Eagles song when Randy was in there, when you listen to the chorus, you're always going to hear Randy. Randy's always in there. You can always pick him out. You can pick out the other guys too, Don especially. But thank you, Bernie. We're going to go to another clip. I promise I will not mute my mic because it's quite quiet in here anyway. It's just that the sound quality of some of these are pretty low. I asked Bernie Leadon a silly little question of what the Eagles would have sounded like on Hotel California if he was still in the band. We're going to stick to mostly Randy questions on here, but I thought I'd add this today.
Well, I don't know if it would have been different, but because I left and Walsh came in. But see, I never really listened to Hotel California, the album, because, I wasn't there anymore. I couldn't avoid hearing the hits. But I'd never heard Pretty Maids in a Row until the History Of tour, and it opened the second half of the show after the intermission. And I was like, wow, there was a great video for that concert, and I was like, wow, that's a great song, Pretty Maids All in a Row. And so, I mean, it's a nice little question, but the truth is I moved on. Walsh came in. He did a great job. They made a great album. And then they broke up.
And then they broke up. They made a great album, and then they broke up. Well, they broke up after the long run, but it's interesting that he didn't listen outside of, through osmosis. You're going to hear Hotel California, New Kid in Town. You're going to hear the bigger songs, but he wasn't in the band, right? And so it was interesting that he left. Then after, with the next album, Randy left, and we're tipping our hat to Randy. We have one clip from Randy that we played a while ago, and we're going to play again. Not right now, but stay, keep with us for this, because he basically talks about not wanting to have bad feelings about the way things went down. Now, I asked Richie Furay a little while ago, not that long ago, a little less than a year ago, does he still talk to Randy Meisner? And of course, Randy was still very much with us, but let's take a listen. Randy Meisner, when's the last time you talked to Randy?
Randy came to the Troubadour when we did the 50th anniversary of Deliverin', and it was so special because not only was Randy there, but Timothy was there, and so my two special bass players were right there at the same time. We got some photos together. Truthfully, John, I hadn't talked to Randy in a long time, and seeing him. Randy's health is, he's got some issues and struggling and all, but the fact that he came was really so cool. And I know that Timothy was glad to see him at the same time. And it was just a really great evening. I have since, done a couple little back porch things and had Randy, do some parts on it. So, it was good. I love it when I can see somebody, and if I haven't seen them for a while, even if we had issues or whatever, and all of a sudden it's like, wow. And we just, all we want to do is hug each other and, hey, man, it is so good to see you. And that's just how it was, man.
Well, that stuff doesn't matter anymore. I think that's a big thing.
Yeah.
And that stuff was big at the time, but you were all young, and it's not, and you're older now, and it's really small.
Yeah, it should be. It should be. And, like with Randy, it was. And, Timothy and I have an ongoing relationship anyway. He's been such a good, close friend. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to check.
I mean, that's how it should be.
That's how it should be.
We shouldn't be what I want to say, I mean, we have poured very sensitive parts of our life into creating something, that, a lot of, most people don't get to do that. I mean, we shared the God-given talent and gifts that he's given us, and that's a very spiritual thing in and of itself. And we should recognize that and appreciate one another, for who they are and what they are. I know when Paul Cotton and I were working together, because we were young, and I brought Paul into the band, and loved him, but we did not have the relationship that we had later on in years when we were playing together. It was, I don't know whether there's competition here or there's this or that and the other, but in later years, man, it was just like, man, that's so good to see you, and and let's go play together. And I took him out with me on tour a couple times, and it was all good. But that's how it should be, man. At this age, my gosh, man, let the U-Haul go, man. That stuff, let that stuff, unhitch that thing, man, and put it on the side of the road.
Someone had told me years ago, competition breeds itself in young bones. It just does. It's like piss and vinegar,
Yeah.
Richie Furay, who was the man who put together with Jim Messina the Poco. They both came out of Buffalo Springfield, formed Poco, recruited Randy, and it was a beautiful thing. But Randy left after the first album. Now I should, from there, unfortunately, I'm introing this clip, but it talks about why Randy left. And Randy's in here. Randy left Poco, went to work on John Deere for a little while I think he told us earlier today in the old clip that it was 8 months. Then worked with Ricky Nelson, got into the Eagles with Bernie, Don Henley, Glenn Frey. So I'd be remiss if I didn't play the three sides. Let me find it. It's right here for you. This is an interesting clip. Okay, here it is. When Randy quit Poco, we get three sides. And this is what happens in all these conversations. Remember, Randy was in Poco first, and then he joined the Eagles after that. And then Timothy B. Schmidt replaced him in Poco and replaced him in the Eagles. Here's the, pardon me for the beginning, because this is the actual whole video we put on the internet earlier. It's part 5 of our conversation with Richie Furay. I'm John Beaudin from Rocky Street Music. That whole thing about Randy and the mix, and so okay. Before I just want you to clarify. I just want you.
Okay, I'll try.
Because Randy had told me, the same thing that a lot of people say. Randy said, "Well, I wasn't," but Randy was very mellow when I talked to him. By that time, I asked him about the Eagles and getting in the fight with Glenn. I says, "Listen, I can't." I said, "I'm not looking for dirt, but at the same time, they'll keep me alive if I don't ask this question."
I did that first album with them,
Right.
Picking Up the Pieces. And then there was a thing where Richie Furay, we made the album, and then I called in and, I said, well, I want to come down and listen to the mixes. And Richie, for some reason, they thought that him and Jimmy Messina should just do it alone. And I said, well, if that's the way it's going to be, I said, I don't feel like a member of the band. Richie said, okay, so you can quit, kind of thing. So then I left. It was just simple as that.
I was in the studio that day, the evening when it happened, and what I had asked the guys to do is please don't bring friends around in here while I'm trying to mix, because it's distracting. And it was a very small studio. We were at CBS. So, and I think Richie and I were there that evening, and it was just the two of us. And somebody came up to the door. I don't know who it was. I'm focused on mixing and working. And apparently that incident happened between Richie and Randy. And why Richie wouldn't let him in, I have no idea. Why not? Yeah. Unless he had a whole gang of people with him, which I don't think he did, not from my recollection. But again, bad choices. That was not in today's terms an appropriate thing to do.
Here's the deal. When you make records, it's a very it can be a tedious situation. And just like in cooking, too many chefs. And so now I'm going to say that this was more on Jimmy's part than mine, because Jimmy was producing the record. But when it came time to mix the record down, Randy was asked probably not to come into the studio until we got some kind of mix done. Now I'm going to be there because it's my band, along with Jimmy. And so, the two of us are sitting there and we're trying to balance things out. And Rusty didn't come in, George didn't come in, and Randy didn't come in. And it really bothered Randy that, he was not able to come in. Now, it wasn't that, okay, we've got it done. Thanks a lot. You guys did it. No, it's come in now and listen to it. And what do you hear? But we never got to that stage with him. It's like, and I'm used to that even today. Val's mixing the record in LA today, and I'm not there when I don't want to be there when he mixes it. When I mixed my last 5 or 6 records, with Jim Mason and with John Macy, and I wasn't there, saying, here, you got to give a little more 3 dB of that stuff. It's all in my ear, what I hear, and so I let them get the balance and get it put in position. I said, no, man, we got to have, this needs to be brought up now. As far as what, the sonic part of it is, I don't get it anymore. It's like, doesn't mean anything. But Randy wanted to be there and to be a part of the hands-on, and I don't think Jimmy wanted that to happen.
More from Richie Furay coming up next week. Make sure you comment on our videos. That's an interesting take. Let me just move my microphone. But they all have slightly different stories, but that's going to happen. And I could tell that Richie, I think, has some bad memories of what happened back then, and I think they would all do something different if they had a chance. Now, I promised you Jack Tempchin, who wrote with Glenn Frey quite a bit. I had a chance to talk to him, but I've also had a chance to talk to who else? Oh, Henry Diltz, who did the album cover. Let's see where we're going. We're going to talk to Jack Tempchin about the first Eagles album. And did the guys know they had what they had? This is a phoner, so we have a lot of BG in the background.
The guys in the band, you think they knew they had something then? Because that's such a strong debut album.
I think they did. But even before we put the band together, his vision was to have the best band in the world. That's why he called it the Eagles, the fly above. And the way he was going to do it, because we talked about it, he said, I'm going to get the best singers that there are, the best players. I'm going to get the best songwriters. Now, everybody puts a band together, and they don't necessarily think that. So when he found these great guys, he had a band where everyone could sing the lead vocal on a hit song. They were all incredible vocalists as well as being incredible players, and he had incredible writers. So I think they must have known how great it was.
That's Jack Tempchin, who co-wrote a lot of songs with the Eagles, with Glenn Frey, but also outside of the Eagles with Glenn Frey. I talked to him not that long after Glenn had passed on, and it was still very sharp with him. He said, I still have songs that Glenn didn't finish. I have songs that Glenn did finish that he wanted to release. He released a tribute song to his old friend, but he was incredibly close to Glenn Frey. And where are we going now? Let's see what our next clip would be. Let me just read a few of your comments first. Ripster 435, you all are a class act. VTV, Richie is a class act. I love Richie Furay. I like talking to him. Lucky Sevens, all the left are over. Should have toured as the Seagulls. Okay. Gina, good lesson for all of us older folks. Men fences. Ain't that the truth, huh? Pookie says, men friendships. Lucky Sevens, rock and roll Randy. Spacey says, I wish that I had made more of an effort to see Poco years ago. Now most of these guys are gone. Well, Richie's still around and performing some of those songs too. Pookie says, Pretty Maids All in a Row. Oh yeah, great song. Randy is amazing, Amy says. Jeffrey Weaver back on now. Yeah, I lost my microphone. Sorry, I probably lost a lot of people when my microphone was muted. Who do we got now? Oh, Bernie. Well, let's go back to Bernie and his thoughts on the Greatest Hits Volume 1 and how big it's gotten. Bring Leadon.
The first one, yeah, I'm not sure if it was released Yeah, maybe around the time I left in that late summer, something like that.
But doesn't that give you satisfaction that those are your years? That's right up to one of these nights, those are your years.
Yeah, including one of these nights, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's amazing, and it's the biggest selling record in America, I guess. Mm-hmm. Although I guess Michael Jackson skips it every once in a while. But I think worldwide maybe, Thriller itself as a single title, I think worldwide has sold more than any other record.
Yeah.
Maybe still. But the Eagles keep selling. I mean, I remember not that many years ago, there was, however many that the RIAA said that, who had sold the most. And Garth Brooks had sold 100 million, partly because they wanted to make sure that they got that. And so they did a bunch of discounts and stuff like that. And they kind of fudged that a little bit, I think. But he had 100 million. The Beatles were at 160 million or something. Garth Brooks had 100 million. The Eagles were like at 85 million or something like that. But I hear that the Eagles were at 150 million.
It's weird when he says the Eagles, considering he was a member of the Eagles, but I can understand that, and most people would say it that way. Bernie was with them up until one of these nights, and then he left and came back for the Eagles' Greatest Hits tour. They asked him to come back, and he had said to me during the interview that he really enjoyed his time touring with them in that way, and the audience so wanted to see him back. Someone asked this morning when we aired the Bernie Leadon interview. We'll play a part of Randy Meisner interview. We're going to play a part of that in a second. But a few people were saying, well, considering Randy passed away, and Randy couldn't rejoin the Eagles. Physically, he couldn't do it. Vocally, he couldn't do it. He was just too weak. And would Don Henley perhaps want Bernie Leadon, at the very least, to come back for the last part of this? And Bernie said he'd be open to it when I asked him. He said, yeah, I'd be open to rejoining again. This was a little less than 2 years ago. But would they let Don Felder come back? And Don sued the band, and a lot of bad things were said. Don is fighting back tears on the history of the Eagles, that Eagles documentary that came out a few years ago, how he wanted to be back in the fold and how he missed it. He's fighting it back, man. You could tell he misses being in the band. And if you asked most fans, they would want Don Felder back in the band. They would want Bernie Leadon back in the band. Would this be a catalyst, the fact that we lost Randy Meisner? And remember, he was never going to come back in the band. He couldn't do it physically or even mentally and vocally as well. I don't know. It would be nice if that was the case, if this was the catalyst for peace. Because what's the big word that the interview with Randy Meisner did this morning? The major thing was, he said, I'm mend fences. I'm not mad at anybody anymore. And when I talked to Randy Meisner, Glenn Frey was very much alive. So let's see what else we have here. Interesting clips. I didn't put on the Bill Simzik interview because I still have to go through that. There was too much. There was a lot of kind of not off the record stuff, but just stuff I wouldn't include. Okay, we've got Richie Furay. Okay, the mix, we've got that. Jack Tempchin. Okay, I don't think we've played this from Jack. I hope not. This is talking about Peaceful, Easy Feeling, which, of course, he co-wrote.
Well, I don't know about that. Well, I was out in the desert, and I don't know where they come from, but you have to get out of the way. I have a technique that I do the last few years. I go to the beach every day, and I sit on the cliff. I write songs, and I make up stuff, and I video it. Then when I get home at night, I look at all the videos, and I write down all the words, and then I work on the songs from there. But I'm just amazed at the stuff I make up. I start playing.
Is this the Alberto stuff, though? Is this the Alberto area?
That's Alberto for sure. But it just kind of blows your mind what comes out of you. Because I'll sit there's 2 songs on my record. I never had a chance to say goodbye. I was sitting on the cliff there, looking at the sun go down, thinking about my buddy Glenn Frey, how he was gone, and I just had the guitar and I just played pretty much the whole song. It just kind of came out. And there's another very unusual song on my new record called Out in the Desert. It just kind of paints a picture of the desert and driving across the desert and that whole experience. I was in the studio with a drum machine and some guys I was with, and they just hit the red button to record, and I just made up the whole song from beginning to end. I have no idea where it came from. But, everybody has that in them. You just have to get out of the way and let it happen. And it's just incredible what's in there. Everything in your life, everything you do, everything you read, every person you talk to is putting stuff inside you that will just come back out if you just let it.
Everything you do, everything in your life. I'm a firm believer of all the stimulus in your life, all the things that you've met. They make you who you are. They tell you what you want to, who you want to be, who you don't want to be. You know, people say that about parents all the time, but that is something. Let me read a few of your comments. We'll get to, I've got that. He's such a, I mean, he's my favorite hippie, Henry Diltz, who did the album covers for so many artists, Crosby, Stills and Nash, James Taylor, The Doors, the first two Eagles albums. He's well known. He's like Roger Dean in that way. A lot of people know about him, except Henry takes pictures and Roger paints, right? And we've interviewed Roger Dean as well. Gina says, perhaps Bernie and Don and even Jack could rejoin for one-off concert. That would be great. It would be historic. You know, if they could do that and tape it, I'd want them to tape it. Ripster says, John is the best. Thank you. Well, thanks. Al's G, great info. Thanks, John. Johnny Holmes, Randy Meisner, not enough money. Okay, I don't know what that. Mark, oh, hi, Mark. Nice to have you on here. So sorry to read that Randy's passing. Such an amazing voice. He was my second favorite Eagles singer behind Don Felder. Eagle behind Don Felder. Rest in peace. What a great loss. Thanks, Mark. Mark and I follow each other on Facebook. TJ, hello again. Anthony, YouTube fan. Listening to the Eagles 72. It's obvious that the band had something. And Ripster says you are a class act. They are all class acts. Yes, thank you. Now, this is interesting. I had a visit from one of my friends, Debbie. She's a publicist and works with Henry Diltz, the gentleman who does all the album covers. And she was just here. She's an Australian, but she lives in LA. She was just here a few days ago. Let's talk to Henry and make sure. I think we've Randy in the mix. Just making sure that we've got. Yeah. So this is a Henry Diltz. We're going to start with Desperado. Him doing the second Eagles album. He was the one that took all the pictures. With Desperado, that was a much bigger shoot, obviously, because they're getting dressed up, and then the extended Eagles family are there all of a sudden.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, once again, Gary will get the word from Elliot Roberts and David Geffen. You know, you take the boys out and do. I mean, I wasn't in on the first conversation, but obviously they'd done a cowboy record. And so Gary got all these cowboy clothes and guns with blank ammunition and, you know, a couple cases of Corona beer and, you know, some of God's herb, whatever we needed for provisions. And then he was kind of like he was like the scoutmaster. We would go out there but then it would happen naturally. And I would just photograph, you know, what happened. I mean, we played cowboys. They played cowboys all day, shooting each other, falling down. I mean, we had a rough plan. Well, let's get the Eagles to back out of the bank with the money bag, like they robbed the bank, and the roadies will come down, running down the road in the background, and we'll film that whole tableau or photograph it. Actually, I had a motor drive, a Nikon motor drive in one hand, and a Bauer Super 8mm movie camera in the other hand that I wasn't even looking in. I was just holding it there. So I got movies and stills at the same time. There's a film of them shooting each other and falling in the dirt.
How does that work? I heard you say that, well, if you don't get paid, you get something you want more, which is you own the pictures. But for album covers, for instance, like when I do my videos, I'm in front of I'm in front of a green screen.
Oh, yeah, right.
When I do my intros, because I do it very much like an anchorman. That's the way I do my videos. I introduce the clip. That's what I'll do for you in front of a backdrop. But in the backdrop, Henry, because I just need your opinion on this. All I have going is all album covers. I have flipping album covers. But who owns those album covers?
Well, I own the photographs that make up the album cover, but the record company owns the thing with the lettering and their name on it, their logo on it, and all that.
So those Eagles pictures, sorry to interrupt you, but those Eagles, like all those pictures you did, they own what they use or modify, sort of?
Well, what they use, what they printed, what they merchandised on the album cover, the inside or the back. And so, now, see, luckily, just as life would have it, I had met Gary Beaudin, this graphic artist, and one of my earliest album covers was with him, and I did 100 of the best albums with him. Yeah. So he was the art department. So he would look at 500 pictures, pick out 3 or 4, and I would get the other, 495 pictures back.
And they're yours.
So keep them all, yeah. Whereas, with a record company, I guess a lot of people would work for the record company art department. They'd say, we want to pay you to take a photo session of this group, give us all the pictures, and then they kind of own them. I mean, it's kind of up in the air as to who really owns them. If you take it, it's your copyright. But if they pay you to take them, then it's their pictures.
I thought I'd include that because that's kind of important, because recently the gentleman or the people who own the Little River Band just hit me with a copyright strike. I've never had one in 10 years. No one's ever done that to me before, where if you put up an album, their copyrighted logo is on the album cover, right? And the people who own the Little River Band, for instance, just bear with me for a second. They didn't like the fact that I interviewed Graham Goebel, who was not happy that he lost the name, B. Birtles, who was also not happy he lost the name, and Glenn Shorrock, their lead singer. And of course, they took offense to that. But they did, I thought, a very dirty trick of when everyone uses people's logos on YouTube videos. And it was just, so I was already kind of curious about that sort of thing. We have one more clip, and let me just read some comments. The Music Sanctuary, thank you for doing this, John. As fans, it's deeply appreciative. Rest in peace, Randy. Thank you. Walt Seraphin, thank goodness Alec Baldwin was in the Desperado album cover. I don't think so. Ripster, this is great. If I'm wrong, just let me know. Mark says, really up to Don Henley to whether Don Felder would come back. Yeah, that's for sure. I don't see it happening. I wish it would. I hope they can get over that. TJ, LOL, loving this story. Phil Stevenson, just love your channel, John. Thank you. Wealth of information. Well, because I'm such a big Eagles fan, I mean, Don Henley will always be my favorite Eagle, bar none. Don's my man. When I looked at the back of one of these nights, and I've said this story before, when I looked at the back cover, they all looked like they had partied or were ready to party an awful lot, right? They all looked like hippies. It's the ultimate picture to me, even more so than the one in that you get from Hotel California. But one of these nights in the back cover, remember it was all kind of, it was bumpy, the cardboard. I looked at, and I didn't know who was who back then. I'm embarrassed to say that. So the guy who sang like Don Henley, that Don Henley voice, I thought, I made up my mind that the guy who was Glenn Frey in the picture, that he was the guy singing like that. I don't know why. I didn't know which one was who was who back then. I quickly got corrected by a friend right after the album was released, thank God. And he said, no. The guy with the afro is the guy who sings like, who has the Don Henley voice. And I went, oh, those feel really stupid. But that happens when you're young. I was 15 at the time. Okay, we got one more clip we're going to play you because I've got to get ready for our Friday Night Live, which is coming up in a little bit. We have a nice Friday Night Live coming up for tonight. Kind of excited about it. Hold on a second. Oh, I can see myself in Restream here. Yeah, we can see it. Anyway, Sean Kelly, who is the author of Don't Call It Hair Metal, is our guest tonight at 5:15 Mountain Time, which is 4:15 Pacific. Let me get back to my stream, and I'll play you one more clip. This is Henry Diltz again. Henry is, as I said, a real hippie, but we talk about favorite album covers. And, I mean, he liked going to the desert for the first Eagles album. You know, they were all partaking, if you know what I mean. Here's Henry Diltz talking about the favorite album cover he's ever done. And I do believe he mentions the Eagles in this. James Taylor, I'm almost done with you. James Taylor, you were filming James Taylor when he was, I think, going through a lot of his angst. And, I mean, he was just, I loved years later when I heard James had become an exercise freak. He said, I replaced all that stuff, and I decided to, he says, I'm a dry drunk kind of thing. He says, what I do, I have to grab onto something. And I like this. I like the way, I'm from a long line of alcoholics, so I like that.
Yeah.
What was he like filming?
His was drugs, right? Hard drugs, unbeknownst to me. I mean, he was kind of a junkie. He was a junkie. Um, uh, Peter Asher called me on the phone. As they say, all these pictures start with a phone call.
Yeah.
You know, Peter Asher says, Henry, can you come down here like today or tomorrow, whatever it was, and photograph this guy, James Taylor? I'm doing his album. I went down to his house. James was sitting on the floor playing his guitar. He was finger picking "Oh Susanna," which blew my mind. And I got down on my knees and wow, and I took a few pictures. Then I said, we need to go out somewhere. And we went to a friend's place where there were little sheds and barns and backdrops, you know, that we could shoot. And we barely talked the whole time. I mean, I was busy just, you know, taking these documentary photos, but he was leaning against the wall, and then he leaned on a big post with his arms like this. And I could frame that up so perfectly. It looked great. I remember saying, wait, don't move, James. Let me get my color cut. Because I was supposed to take publicity photos.
Right.
It meant black and white, because newspapers couldn't run color.
Right.
So black and white. And then I said, you know, that looks so good. I want to get a color shot for my slideshows to show my friends. So I said, don't move. I got my color camera and took a picture. And when they saw it, they used that for the album cover. So that was an accidental album cover. But he hardly talked.
He's quiet though.
He is a quiet guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
He is a quiet guy. I mean, now we can talk about it, but then, I mean, yeah, we didn't, you know.
Of all the album covers, sorry to interrupt you. Of all the album covers, is there something that stands out, whether it's because of the picture or how, Henry, you took the picture or the experience? Is something that stands out?
Well, all of them, really. I mean, the Eagles, you know, although it's just them standing there. And the back of it is a posse shot with the Eagles laying dead in the street and the posse standing there posing with their, like they used to do way back. And we posed that from a book of actual outlaw photos, you know. Seeing Jimmy Webb's album cover up in the glider, I think, oh yeah, there was that, you know, CSN on the couch. That one, probably one of my favorites because it just feels.
Because the house disappeared?
And now we went back, yeah. You know, that as well. We were taking publicity photos. No one said we're doing an album cover. They said, we don't have any pictures. We got to get a shot of the three of us. So Gary and I and the three guys drove around West Hollywood, stopping here and there to take photos. We found the old house. But Gary, I guess he knew in his mind, you know, maybe we'd get a cover because he said, make sure you shoot color.
Right.
So I shot color of it. But then when we looked at it later, we said, this would make a great cover, but we're in the wrong order. We've called now, since you took the photo a couple days ago, we've decided on Crosby, Stills, and Nash. And we're Nash, Stills, and Crosby in there. And I said, let's just go back. No problem. Jump on the couch. Bang, bang, bang. 5 minutes. We got it. And we all got in the car and drove back, and the house was gone. So it was, you know, a bulldozer had pushed it all to the back of the lot, and it's now a parking lot.
Right.
It was right about when Joni had her song "Paved Paradise," put up a parking lot, and that's, you know.
Yeah.
What happened?
What a gentleman, huh? He's one of a kind. I'm going to read some of your comments. We're going to leave the last word to the man that we lost the day before yesterday, Randy Meisner. It wasn't announced till the following day, and people always ask me, well, why did they wait so long? Well, you want to get your ducks in order. You want to call the family. You know, really, you can't go around announcing someone's dead. You don't want a relative to hear that Randy's passed. You want to hear it firsthand. Like I told you a few hours ago, I called Glenn Fry's brother up, Alan. I didn't call him. I texted and asked him, I said, is this true, Alan? Did Randy pass away? And Alan said, I didn't even hear about it. I had no idea he died. So he heard it from me. And Mark House, the only time I see Poco was 4 or 5 years ago with Rusty, the original member. They were still awesome. I have seen Eagles 4 times, first with Randy on the Hotel California tour. You're a very lucky man. GH Fan Texas, it seems like Randy has anxiety when singing Take It to the Limit. He did. Rick K. Joe Walsh saved the Eagles. One of These Nights was a great album, but he really elevated to the next with Hotel California. Most people would agree with you, that's for sure. TJ, I think I figured out which one was Don Henley when Dirty Laundry came out. Well, Dirty Laundry was a long time after that. Walt says the main strength of the Eagles was a huge variety of lead singers in the group. Henley's voice gets got to be too much and reduced the main advantage. Ripster 435. I'm promoting your channel at the station I work at. Thank you. I appreciate that. We need all that. People always ask me, how come you guys aren't bigger? I'm going, I don't know. We don't advertise. We don't spend a lot of money on advertising. And a lot of the channels that are this size advertise. But, we're lucky that the channel supports us. I have a radio gig in Vancouver. I live in Calgary, but I do a radio gig for a big channel, for a big radio station in Vancouver that I've worked at since 1990. Those are my plaques. My plaques are there. Where's my plaques? They're further up. Where are they up? Yeah, there's my plaque right there. Ooh, you can see it right beside Paul McCartney. That's my 20-year plaque. I've actually been there since 1990, but I've technically been there 25 years. I'm waiting for my new plaque to come. I work for Bell Media. We're going to leave the last word to Randy Meisner. This is him talking about coming full circle as far as looking back at, the crap that happened in the Eagles. We played this track a while ago. It kind of touched a lot of people. So I'm going to leave the last word to Randy, and I'll be back right after that, and I'll read your other comments. And then we have Friday Night Live coming up in about 3 hours. Let's listen to Randy Meisner. We miss you, Randy.
I can't blame a lot of people for that. But the thing is, it's like after Hotel California, it was like I was been on the road so much. And I was married and going through a divorce. And it's like I thought, my God, it's like taking a toll. Just being on the road all your life, and you don't have any normal life. And I think that's what everybody was. It was like, these books were written and stuff, and everybody like bitched at each other. But bottom line is like, that's in the past now. Because gosh, why should I don't want to end up hating everybody for the rest of my life, and I won't. And I think of these guys as just like good compadres that I've worked with, and we had a great time. And just, leave it alone and have fun together,
Hey, good way of looking at it, because it's amazing when you look at the culture of, making a difference to so many people, and you shared that with these guys, a part of rock and roll history that was very important, and that was obviously very satisfying in a lot of ways. And it's nice to look back at it that way. We all hear stories of people bitching forever about past members and holding grudges.
There's a time when you got to stop.
Yeah.
We're getting too old for that crap.
Hey,
I am anyway.
Hey, I agree. As my dad would say, it's hard on the heart, man, to hate someone for a long time.
Exactly. You got it right on the money.
Yeah, he says it'll make you too old.
Yeah, it'll jitter your nerves and make you grow old fast and die quicker.
Uh-huh. Do you ever listen to like Dawn's new album? Are you listening to their stuff they put out?
I've heard a couple of cuts. Like I saw him on Jay Leno the other night, and it was real different. I mean, Dawn is always good. I mean, he's got the golden throat. David Geffen like coined that one.
Is that right?
Yeah, he's got the golden throat. But I had the real high voice. But the purpose of the whole Eagles to me is like there was that combination of the chemistry that made all those harmonies just sound perfect. And the funny thing is, after we made albums, I never listened to them.
Really?
It's only if somebody comes over or I'm at somebody's house, if they play them, and then I say, God damn, that's really good. You know what I'm watching right now?
What?
I live in the hills in Studio City, and my wife and I feed deer every night.
Oh, my God.
And there's two little fawns up here. They're spotted yet. They're twins. We've been feeding them for like about, I've been here 14 years. But it's just so neat. I just had to say that.
Oh, my God.
We feed them, and they come up every night. They trust us, and you got to build trust in animals.
It's interesting you should say that because, if you look at a stereotypical view, I think of anybody looking at someone who was with Poco and the Eagles, they probably think, he's sitting on his porch feeding deer. And there you're doing it.
These little guys, it's like, they're so cute. And all together, I mean, the animals we feed, it's like we've seen, 3 skunk families raise their children.
Wow.
And everybody says skunk. Oh, no. But they're the cutest little things in the world.
Do you have a lot of privacy where you live?
Very much so.
Is that right?
I'm like on a little street where it's like I have a driveway that comes into my house. It's like a dead end. And then below my house, there's a lot of land, and it's like in the mountains, towards Universal City, where they really can't build on the hills. And so I leave my gates open for the deer and all the animals, and we feed them every night.
Wow.
I mean, it's like 6 feet from us. And it's just, I think animals are one of the most wonderful things in the world.
Oh, yeah. Talk about getting close to nature, which is, kind of important. Do you ever have something coming up to your door that maybe you don't want coming to your door that could eat you or something?
No, we've had a bobcat come up here. I just consider them just beautiful animals.
Yeah. That's
I mean,
kinda
we
cool.
take, and the thing is, we take pictures because people do not believe us in the Hollywood Hills that, there could be that many animals.
Wow.
Believe me, over the last 14 years, we built so much trust with them that we can watch them or we can put food out while they're eating and they don't even move.
Do you still collect cars? do you?
Yeah, like I had a whole bunch of real ones. Like about maybe 8 years ago. I had like about 23 cars, antiques, mostly Fords.
Oh my God.
And all of a sudden, they were in Nebraska. I had a storage place back there.
And you're from Nebraska, right?
Yes, I am. I grew up on a farm. And so that's why I like my privacy. Yeah, I had a whole bunch of them. Right now, I sold all of them and kept like a little 40 Ford pickup that's like all restored. Has a little V8 85 in it with duals and 15-inch tires, and that's all I've done. It's just like a perfection.
Wow. Well, who restores them? You or someone you know?
I didn't restore this one. My cousin did. He went to Cal State, and a friend of his took this thing and took it like down to the frame, everything, and did it as an art project.
Wow.
And so every bolt in the car, he saved in a bag, unless it was rusted a little bit, and put it back in the same spot.
Oh, my God.
And rather than like a lot of people like to sand them down, in Pasadena, California, there's a place where you can take the body of the pickup and the fenders and dip them in a solution that takes the paint off without taking all your metal away. And then the guy that worked at the Ford dealership painted it in this old enamel before they, stopped the paint. That was a good paint. And it's just like, it's my little pride and joy.
Isn't that amazing? Oh, Randy, you got to love the man. And that just shows you like I said to Randy in 2000, would people be surprised if they heard that Randy Meisner was feeding deer from his backyard or having skunks come in? And, by the way, Melissa Lee, thank you for your super chat. Thank you for supporting the channel. We appreciate that. This is how we make a living. So when people give us a donation, it means a lot. Thank you, because YouTube's income is like all over the place. You never know what you're going to get. That's why we started Patreon. By the way, if you want to get early access to our videos, you'll get early access to the Bill Simzik stuff, which we're going to put on this weekend, who is the producer of the Eagles, from most of On the Border to One of These Nights to Hotel California, The Long Run, the live album, and so forth. So before I leave, remember we have our Friday Night Live tonight, which is at 5:15. And we're going to talk about I'm kind of excited about this. We're going to talk to Sean Kelly. Don't Call It Hair Metal. He's our special guest. He's going to join us. So that's coming up tonight. It's been a busy day on live. So we actually halted the videos from Caleb Quay and from the Elton John Band and from Chris Thompson from Man for Man's Earth Band, Blinded by the Light, co-wrote You're the Voice for John Farnham. So we actually put those into Tuesday because I wanted to come on live, and I didn't want to stack you guys with too many interviews. Today is really a day to talk about Randy Meisner. I mean, this is the day where you listen to the music. I wish you could play it for you, but we can't. TJ Hart, Melissa Lee says heart. Oh, thanks. Ripster, hi Gina. Walt Seraphin, my 90-year-old mom and sister fed a herd of 20 deer in their backyard every day. Crazy to see. Oh, wow. Melissa Lee. He absolutely adored his nature outside his window. Take care. Thank you, Melissa. Justin E., I hate people defending Fry and Henley. That's the reason Randy was the one that came to blows. Bernie and Felder both came to blows. Hold on, I got to get rid of this here. I don't know why that's... something's covering your words there. TJ, they had otherworldly chemistry. That's what Henry Paul said. Yeah. Oh, Walt Seraphin says, absolutely a waste to hate people. Yeah, it's true. Anyway, Melissa, thank you for your donation. That's very sweet of you. And I don't have a lot for that time because Randy sent me some music. And he sent me this picture, and he autographed one of these nights for me. He asked me, which album do you want? I've got copies of each one. And I says, well, I just want one. I says, you know what? I felt like asking him for all the albums, but I didn't do that. I said, can you autograph one of these nights? Which he did. If I have time, I'll bring it up for our Friday Night Live or next time I go on live. So remember at 5 12:15 Mountain Time, we're going to have our Friday Night Live with author Sean Kelly. We're going to talk about Don't Call It Hair Metal, his brand new book, which is a really cool book. You know, kind of telling stories about the 80s and all those bands that had a lot of hair. I used to call that a lot of that music crotch rock, but I listened to some of it. I didn't buy a lot of it, but anyway, I did. We're almost up to the hour. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. It means a lot to me. I love you so much for supporting us. It means more than you can ever imagine. This channel is a lot of fun. I'm in my basement, by the way. People always ask me, this is my basement. It's not a finished basement, but this little part is. Like over there, not so finished. Over here, ooh, nice, with the Beatles and Eddie Van Halen over here. Oops, that's Eddie. And it makes for a nice little backdrop. And it's nice and cool down here in the summertime. So we'll be back at 5 p.m. in about a little less than 3 hours for our Friday Night Live. If news breaks, I'll be back on. Take good care of yourself. Love you guys. Remember,